I feel like that's wild that you were buying it on the internet.
During 2020, you get the Telegram app and you can literally buy what you want. So I had been prescribed with diazepam before. I felt I needed this to help me get to sleep. And if I couldn't sleep, I would not be able to function. So it became part of my survival that I needed it ultimately.
You can tell people about the benefits as much as you tell you blue in the face. Like, people got to be ready. And I think I wasn't ready until I was.
I got to a point where I could have 2 or 3 pints would affect my sleep. I'd wake up feeling not hungover, but cloudy and not alert. And I thought, I'm going to stop this now.
Welcome to Upward Spiral, a podcast about life after alcohol and how to create and maintain upward momentum in your life. I'm your host, Michelle O'Brien, and each week we explore how actionable micro habits, mindset tweaks, and strategies can build lasting momentum. So today we're diving into the topic of epic comebacks, how to rise from the ashes of adversity to create a life that you love. And I have an incredible guest, pun intended, joining me to share his story today. He is a chartered director, an organizational transformation consultant, and the creator of The Comeback Plan. He's navigated personal loss, health challenges, addiction, and career setbacks, and not just survived, but he's thrived. I've known him for a long time, and he's always radiated such positive energy. I am so excited to introduce to you today Tim Guest. Tim, welcome to the Upward Spiral.
Hello, welcome. And thank you for having me join you here today, sir.
Yeah. So we worked together 17 years ago, I'm going to say.
It makes me feel very old, but I think it was about 17 years ago yet. Well, it doesn't feel like that long ago at all.
Not at all. Time has flown. And that was during my very, very short stint in recruitment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Graduating in 2008, couldn't get a job in advertising. I think recruitment was the only thing hiring, ironically.
At the time, I don't know if you remember, but before I moved over to your division, I worked in banking recruitment. So it was an even worse time for us.
But good times. It was always fun. I'll always look back on that time of my life really fondly, actually. It was a good few years.
We'll probably touch on a few of those points, but that kind of recruitment lifestyle was quite work hard, play hard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about, I've actually chaptered it, the descent, hitting rock bottom, which feels incredibly dramatic. But I think it would just be great if you could just share a little bit of your story and your life pre-2020, and then the series of events that led to, for lack of better words, maybe a bit of a downward spiral.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I can share that. I'll do a bit of a whistle stop tour. So my life was good. Living up in Manchester, working in recruitment, working hard, playing hard, as we discussed. I worked in various kind of industries, mainly kind of IT focused industries. And then in 2013, I got an opportunity to go and join a family business. At the time, I was working for an SAP consultancy, so an IT consultancy. And I went to go and implement the IT software in the family business. Anyway, cut a long story short, ended up taking over the business, changing the business, growing the business into different industry sectors, one of which was brewing. So we set up our own brewery on site. So I had a nano brewery, which I ran, and was basically testing beer every day from lunchtime. And 2019, we decided that it was a good time to offload the business. We'd grown, the business had changed, it kind of no longer needed me. So through 2019, we exited from the business. And in January 2020, that was when the sale completed. Myself and my family, we'd had a kind of a lifetime goal. We wanted to move to the island of Jersey, in the Channel Islands. Lifestyle, be by the sea, nice place for the kids. So that was the plan. In March 2020, I went over to go and speak to the consultancy that I've been talking to for some time, kind of do the final bits and bobs before hopefully joining in that summer. But as we know, 2020, we went through COVID came along in March. Literally, I was there at the start of March, and a week later, it was like everything was getting locked down, and dreams of moving somewhere different were completely put on hold. And it was like, well, you can't even leave the house, let alone think about moving away. So I then basically pivoted and thought, right, well, I'll start my own consulting business, which I had some ideas for, and that's kind of with the start of the downward spiral. So one of my dog died first of all, Riley. So we've had him for 15 years, and as you know, when you've got a family dog, they become part of your family, don't they? And then a good friend of mine, who our daughters were friends, called Gav, he died of a brain tumor. And what's saddest about that is that his funeral was live streamed on Facebook because no one could go. And I'm thinking, you've got a guy who's 43 years old, loads of friends all around the country, around the world, and no one can go. I thought, this is just wrong. Anyway. And then in the May of that year, 2020, I got diagnosed with my own tumor. So it wasn't a cancerous tumor, thank goodness. It was a non-cancerous tumor on my pituitary gland, so attached to my brain. And it'd been causing me lots of kind of strange things in my body over the years, which I kind of really sort of put to one side. Poor sleep, I was constantly running on adrenaline and cortisol. Anyway, so I had to have this tumor removed. That was booked in for the August of that year. That was done. I expected to bounce back very quickly, but I didn't. During the same process, my mother-in-law was in hospital. She went in with a broken ankle. It was COVID, so she was deprioritized, kept missing operations. Health declines, got worse and worse and worse. And 3 months later, she died. And I just remember like sitting in my front room trying to sort of recover from my own surgery, was trying to help my wife, who was obviously grieving for her mother, and up and down to Blackburn. And I would say that was probably the rock bottom for me. And I remember Christmas of that year, I couldn't sleep. I'll come on to that probably later on, but my sleep was just so bad. I'm just sitting in the bathroom with my head in my hands on Christmas Day thinking, I just can't carry on anymore. But I can't go and face life. But then you have to, because you've got kids. Pull yourself together. Come on, let's go and crack on. So I probably said that was my bottom. Bit of a whistle.
I'm so sorry to hear all of that. Like, it's just like 2020 was a pretty shit year for most people, but that is just awful. I'm so sorry, Tim.
Yeah,
I'm not proud.
It's really, looking back at it, though, it doesn't feel like my life. It feels like someone else's life when I look back at it. It was strange time.
And how did you cope?
I was just getting through day to day. So I've always been a reasonably heavy drinker, not an alcoholic, but drinking a lot. I mentioned when I used to run my company, we had a brewery. I was drinking 3-4 beers a day because that was just normal. Obviously, I didn't drink immediately after my brain surgery, but I was probably drinking again October. And my kind of cycle for me would be wake up, have a bad headache, take some paracetamol, do what I need to do with the kids and family, have some espresso to wake me up, have a few beers at lunchtime and just kind of get through the day, and then self-medicate with, I was buying diazepam, Zopiclone. I got hold of some nitrazepam at one point. I was buying them all on the internet and just making myself pass out and then doing it all again the next day.
Not surprised you had a headache in the morning.
I know, yeah.
I feel like that's wild that you were buying it on the internet.
Yeah, well, it was so easy. You get it on we had during 2020, get the Telegram app, and you can literally buy what you want.
I didn't know, honestly. I think because I was here in Singapore and we kind of in our little bubble here a little bit. So you can buy it all via Telegram.
You can buy whatever you want via Telegram.
So it wasn't like
anymore.
It wasn't like a pharmacy. It was just like
no. No, I had been prescribed with diazepam before, but you can't keep getting it. And I felt with this, I felt I needed this to help me get to sleep. And if I couldn't sleep, I would not be able to function. So it became part of my survival that I needed it ultimately.
I was on diazepam for a period as well, just horrific anxiety and depression and everything. But once you've been prescribed it one or two times, they'll stop.
Yeah.
They won't prescribe it anymore. And Zopiclone as well for the sleep. Self-medicating with alcohol and prescription drugs that weren't on prescription.
Yeah. And it was masking a sleep problem I didn't know I had. So the tumor had caused various changes to the bone structure of my body. And so I have something called obstructive sleep apnea, which meant that every time I went to sleep, I stopped breathing between 50 and 80 times a night. So my oxygen levels, I wore an oximeter one day that the doctor gave to me, and my oxygen level dropped down as low as 80% when I was asleep. And I think anything below 90 is the needle. So that explains why I couldn't sleep before, why I had a headache every day.
Wow. This is a lot, you know? Was there like a moment, like a rock bottom, like a moment where you just thought, you know what, actually, this can't go on. This isn't healthy. This isn't normal. Was there a realization at any point?
I wouldn't say an actual moment. There was one day, so in January 2021, I said, right, I need to get back into work. I need to start hammering the business development, bringing on some clients and actually getting myself out there. Otherwise I'm done for. There was one day in particular when I kind of just struggled to actually get out of bed. And I was like, if you don't get up today, you're never going to get up again, and that would be it over. So I forced myself out of bed, correct, on that day. I suppose everything has started to top of my outlook has started to improve when I started working with a guy called Audit. He's an ex-Special Forces guy. He was on Channel 4's SES Who Dares Wins. And as part of my BD for my consultancy, I ran a load of free webinars, basically booking influential and inspirational guest speakers. And I wanted one of the SAS guys, not necessarily Ollie. But I think it's kind of fate that we were put together because we still work together now. And he and I did a webinar on ultimately goal setting during challenging times. So how to set yourself a goal when we're living in uncertain times. What the hell's next week, or let alone next year? And working with Ollie kind of was kind of that catalyst to get myself on that road to recovery. And that January was when I decided to stop buying the medication. It was quite horrific for 2 days. Literally was like, you've seen that scene in Train Spotting where where he's kind of going through the cold turkey. I felt like that. All my joints were aching. I was But then once I'd done it, I'm like, right, that's behind me now. I can move on.
Amazing. And you just did it yourself? You didn't get any help? Coming on?
No, I've always been the sort of person to just do something myself, just crack on.
And that was the prescription drugs. What about the drinking?
So drinking just carried on, really, not because I didn't see it was a problem. It wasn't causing me any issues. Yes, I kind of didn't feel as alert and sharp, but that was just kind of daily life for me. And drinking kind of just continued. It did lessen my kind of relationship with alcohol, changed slightly. It's like, I'm not going to be one of those people who's going to give up, but I am going to drink less. But it just continued, and particularly at big events as well. I would, friends gatherings, and when we were all allowed out after lockdown and everything. So yeah, it did carry on.
Yeah, the lockdown thing was a funny one, actually, because over COVID, I had children. I had babies, my son was born in 2019.
Well, right.
Yeah, so my son was born in 2019, and it was a couple of months before his first birthday that we got locked down. So, and then had my daughter a year later. So she was born in 2021. I didn't drink throughout COVID because I had a baby and another one on the way. But after lockdown, I was like, I want to get my social life back. want to start drinking again.
And the social, when you've got a baby, you either go to baby groups where you talk about babies, or it's going out and drinking, isn't it? So socializing.
Couldn't do the baby group mum thing. That is like a topic for another episode, but that wasn't, I couldn't keep having the same conversation about my baby. It was it was numbing. I couldn't do it. But yeah, so I was just kind of like, oh, seeing my friends, started to drink again, going out, and I had such a bad reaction to the alcohol. Like, it made me so sick. Like, I felt terrible afterwards, felt terrible for like a week afterwards, heavy nights out were just horrible. And I think because I had such a prolonged period off it during COVID and pregnancy, always kind of like trying to go back to how life was before COVID and before kids with the drinking, it actually just wasn't right for me anymore. So that was one of the reasons. But you touched on work events, and just seeing your friends, right? Like, it's hard to cut back when so much revolves around drinking.
And so, as and when we were kind of released again, it was, getting back to where we left off, meeting up with friends, going out and just trying to pick up where we left off. But again, my body had changed, which didn't put the alcohol as much. And I would find that I would go out and I would have a really good fun evening, or so I thought, a good fun evening, and then just be violently sick. And, I remember one day just like waking up in the hotel room and just like, oh my God, I'm just, the woman was knocking on the door to get me to check out, but I was still being sick in the bathroom. I'm like, you're a 45-year-old man. What on earth are you doing to yourself? But it still didn't twig with me that I needed to kind of quit. It was just like, the price you pay for a good night out. But
yeah, it's funny that, isn't it? Because, I suffered from just gut issues and this is kind of relevant just in the sense that I tried everything. Like, I did every elimination diet you could think of apart from alcohol. It's like, it was like something in my brain just wouldn't ever register, not just with gut problems, but with my anxiety or with not being able to manage the stress from work, is that it was like, I just would never register that alcohol was the problem.
Yeah, it's kind of just normalized, isn't it? And going back to our days when we used to work in recruitment, the firm I worked for before, when I worked with you, was even more kind of work hard, play hard. And it was normal. I remember on one day, which I remember in Manchester, we had the Wetherspoons that used to open at 8:00. And on various occasions after a heavy night out, I would meet a friend. We would have a pint in Wetherspoons at 8 before going into work, just to take the edge off. And that was there was nothing wrong with that. Looking back at it, it's so bad, but it was not like nothing wrong with it at the time.
Yeah, I know. And, sometimes you would just go to the pub at lunch, wouldn't you? And you kind of go to that Wetherspoons and get a burger and a pint for £5. And those are the days. But yeah, it was normal. It was life. So at what point was there, like, so we talked a little bit about kind of the Ollie, meeting Ollie and, maybe that being a point of realization. What changes did you start to make then?
So I continued to work with Ollie because, when you meet someone and your kind of energy and vibration levels are quite similar, and I continued to work with him, and I did 2 webinars with him, and then joined one of his sort of coaching programs that I found hugely beneficial. And Ollie gave up drinking quite some time ago as well, and was a big advocate for not drinking. So I started to kind of experiment with, sober curious, I think they call it. But I started to experiment with longer periods of not drinking, and actually felt the benefits from that as well. So throughout 2021, that was what I carried on doing. Things started to improve, and whether I kind of put it down to not drinking as much, I don't know, but things started to improve. So I got some consultancy work on, and then finally got a piece of work coming from Lloyd's Bank in Jersey through the consultancy, which was then like the catalyst for me being able to move over here, which is kind of fulfilling that dream. And with obviously moving house, moving home, moving life to a new country, you have to be looking after your health as well. So I started to change my daily habits. So morning visualizations of, the move, everything going well. I started to do more of I started to do more journaling. writing down my thoughts into a book. I started to do a lot more actual planning my days out, writing down what I'm going to do, what I'm going to achieve. Whereas before it was just a kind of a blur. Just let's get through the day as best you can and then do it all over the next day. Was coming out the other side when I had a bit more mental clarity was a lot more right. Let's be more focused, try and break down what do I need to do to kind of achieve this goal.
So, and I'm sure this wasn't all done overnight. I'm sure these changes happen kind of gradually over time, right?
It takes the whole period to recovery takes a long time, and it's not something you can be. Oh, I'm better now. I had periods of ups and downs. I had periods of kind of relapse into depression. I had one period in time when I remember I was watching the Euros and England were in the semi-finals, and I was just kind of felt a bit numb to it all. I wasn't really getting in the moment. And it's people think you can kind of recover from this straight away, but it takes a lot of work and continually doing those daily habits to make sure that you're staying on track.
Yeah, it's journaling helped me hugely. And how I started journaling was I read the book called The Artist's Way by Julie. It'll be on here somewhere. I forget her surname. Anyway, she is. It was amazing, and it's a 12-week program. And then each week you have to you take yourself out on an artist day, and you do different like acts of creativity. Again, very very open, whether that's kind of writing, whatever you want, whatever suits you. But one of the things with it is you have to write 3 pages every single morning. Okay. As soon as you wake up, they're called morning pages. And just get your thoughts down on paper, just let it all spill out. And just going through that exercise every single morning, I uncovered parts of myself and thoughts that I didn't really even know I was having. And it really helped me become really clear on what parts of myself I needed to work on, and maybe and really unearthed things that had maybe happened a long time ago that were still bothering me, and things that I needed to process.
Yeah.
And the power of it, I think, a lot of people talk about journaling these days, getting your thoughts out on paper and the power of it, but I don't hear a lot of people talk about why and what happens when you do.
Agreed, and it's actually the reason, but by the reason for doing it. The one thing that I do, and I actually teach my daughters to do this as well, is because our brains are naturally programmed to fear the worst. If something happens and it's making you feel a certain way, or something, an event's coming up that you're concerned about, the brain's giving you all the negative reasons as to why something's not going to go well. So if you write these things down, they kind of then out of your brain. Even I do this. I had an email a few weeks ago from our HR director copying in the COO. We want to, we're going to put a meeting in your diary about something, and it was kind of a very random type that didn't mean much to me. I'm thinking, my subconscious is going, you're going to get sacked. They're going to give you your notice. You're going to lose your license. We're going to lose the house. It's a completely unfounded thoughts. So you sit down, write down all the thoughts that you're worried about, and then highlight the ones that are actually going to happen. And it kind of helps you feel better about things. So.
Yeah. Have you ever watched the TV show This Is Us?
No, I haven't. No. I should look it up.
It's actually brilliant. And I'm a crier. So like, I loved it when, again, kind of consumed it all through COVID, because I just had that outlet to be able to sit down for an hour and cry. But it is amazing. And there's a couple in this show, and they play this game, and it's like, what's the worst that can happen? So, and it's something that kind of the coach that I've been working with, she's just like, sometimes you just have to go through that to maybe realize like how unfounded your fears and worries are. So you get this email from HR with the COO included, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, right, someone's putting a complaint about me. Something's wrong. I'm going to lose my job. Okay, if I lose my job, I can't get another one, and then I'm going to lose the house, and then my family are going to leave me, and then all of a sudden, you kind of spill out the worst case scenario. And sometimes it's actually really good to get it out and to maybe realize that the reality of that is maybe a little bit unrealistic. But also, even if that was to happen, there's, even if you were to lose your job, you can get another one. It's not the end. And I find it's quite a good exercise to do.
Yeah.
Another thing that you talked about was visualizations. And visualizing your day going right, your move going right.
Visualizations is a huge part for me now. And so at the moment so in my work, I run complex projects for a financial organization. And with my team, we do visualizations about the project and how it's going to end. If you're working in a project and you're just imagining it not, failing, it will fail. In my personal life, so at the moment, I'm training for a half Ironman in the summer, which is 1.9 kilometers swim, 90K bike, I think, and then a half marathon. So I'm good at cycling, or average at cycling, average at running. I'm not good at anything. But swimming, I could never swim. So I can do breaststroke very well, but you can't really do breaststroke in a triathlon. So front crawl, literally, I could only swim half a length without getting out of breath. But I've had lessons every spare moment, but at least once a day, I'm watching swimming videos. I'm visualizing in my head swimming amazing front crawl and how easy it's feeling. And when I go to bed at night, that's the feeling that's the vision that I get into my head as well. And that's powerful because it's teaching my subconscious that I'm actually a good swimmer.
I used it, and I use it with my marathons and my running. Visualizing, really studying the route. My last marathon was Paris, and so it was like, really visualizing the landmarks that I was going to see, the people I was going to be running with, what the ground would look like, what it would feel like crossing the finish line.
That's right.
And it helps massively. Huge.
Yeah, because then you go into. I've never done anything like this before, and I'm going to do exactly the same as you. I'm going to check out the route beforehand and visualize it on the start line, so that when I turn up there, I don't feel like an imposter. I feel like I've done it before. Otherwise, you feel like, all these amazing people and just me.
Exactly. And I think it's not just visualize, it's also visualizing how you're going to feel. And when you said you're in the water, it's like this is going to feel easy.
Adding the feeling and also the emotion to the feeling as well is even more powerful.
I love Andrew Huberman. He is one of my favorite podcasters, and he had a woman on his podcast called Martha Beck. And I just loved her. I thought she was absolutely wonderful, and I loved the episode that they did, and I've read a couple of her books since. And she has got one exercise that she practices, and it's the perfect day visualization. And it's close your eyes, you are lying in your bed, okay, so you stop and you smell, you think about the light, how you're feeling, what do your bed sheets feel like, and you open your eyes and it's okay, what's the temperature of the room, who's lying next to you, what can you hear, and what can you see, and you kind of in that much detail. I find it I always use it in meditation as well, if I'm struggling to maybe concentrate on stillness and nothing. I sometimes will just say, okay, actually I'm going to do a whole day, my perfect day, and it's like, get out, go for a run. I feel the warmth on my face. I'm running by water, and I've heard it's supposed to be very good for manifesting that. And, eventually one day you're waking up and it is your perfect day.
The morning meditation. So I try and meditate every day. It's easier said than done particularly when you've got children as well. But one of the ones that I find very powerful is the morning visualization of the perfect day. And I particularly like to use this if I have a big event coming up. Say if I have a client pitch or a meeting or something that I want to go well, then it's kind of the perfect day leading up to that point, and then visualizing how that actual event is going to go, and then seeing it all the way through to the end. And then you leave the room, start your day, and then you live through the day you visualized.
Do you ever get disappointed or panicky if that day is not going to plan?
I know what you mean, but no, I don't, because I think we would be mind readers if we could sit here and kind of visualize what everyone's going to say to you and what that would be weird if you kind of visualize something and then every single thing fell into place. I suppose I've never really had it where I've visualized something and it hasn't gone exactly as I've imagined. So if I'm speaking at an event and I lack self-confidence for the event and you imagine the event going well and everyone praising you for it, that usually does tend to happen.
I think it's also the visualization is part of the preparation.
Definitely. Yeah.
And sometimes in the visualizations, you can scenario plan. Okay, what's going to happen if I get a difficult question? What types of questions could I get? What could possibly go wrong without catastrophizing? There's a kind of that fine line between like spiraling and catastrophizing versus being prepared. But I find that, when you've done that exercise and then if something doesn't go to plan, you still feel able to handle it. So we've just talked about kind of like building momentum and these small habits compounding and having a big impact. So we've talked about kind of the visualization, a little bit about meditation, journaling, anything, and your training as well. So you've been doing endurance sports.
So my other habits, again, that I've got from Ollie Ollerton every day, and I was drinking it when I came on with you. So I don't have caffeine when I wake up. I have a large mug of hot water and half a squeezed lemon and a quarter of a teaspoon of Celtic sea salt to rehydrate. And I'm not lying to you, I've not been unwell in over a year. I don't know whether it's the vitamin C from the lemon. So that's one habit that I cannot now live without. I've also bought from my garden an ice bath. When I say an ice bath, it's one of these black bin type things, freestanding, that you fill up with cold water and chuck ice cubes in. It's the most unappealing thing on earth to get into when it's dark outside. It's cold outside and sometimes raining. You know what UK's like in the winter. But that sets me up for an incredible day because that's me taking control of my subconscious, ultimately. So the subconscious wants you to take the easiest route through life possible because it's kept you alive, it's kept you safe. When I woke up this morning at 10 to 6, it was cold and my brain was saying, stay in bed, it's warm, it's cozy, it's nice. Michelle won't know that you haven't been in the ice bath. You can always lie. And I thought, no, get out. And then you go and get in, you say to yourself, I'm going in. And then when you come out, you feel good. But I also now feel that I'm in control of my subconscious. I own the narrative, not my subconscious. So that's another habit that I developed as well, is ice baths at least 3-4 times a week.
I love that. It's the first time, like, I think I've heard anyone describe an ice bath as you becoming in control of your conscious. It's like, that's, wild. And I would say that my ice bathing is in very, very different circumstances. I have just been gifted an ice bath, and some friends of mine left Singapore have just given me one. So I've got to set it up on a balcony, which I'm really excited about. But it's 30 degrees outside, 35 at this time of day. So
one benefit to having an ice bath here is that I don't have to spend a lot of money on ice. When it was 3 degrees outside.
For us it's like a machine that hums and getting it cold and getting it to stay cold. I put ice cubes in there, for 2 minutes later they've melted. But it's a little bit. Whilst I love an ice bath, I go to somewhere called the Ice Bath Club in Singapore, and it's but it's beautiful. It's saunas and sunken baths, and it's gorgeous. And so it's more like a spa experience than a battle of wills.
Sounds more glamorous than my backyard, but I do. I go swimming in the sea over here as well. I try and go at least once a week, and again, that is me taking control of the subconscious, because to go and stand on a rocky beach when it's raining and it's 5 degrees and getting to the sea that's 8 degrees C, that's not a natural thing to do. Your brain, like, don't do it. Why would you do it? But once you can take control of it, you go in. It's given me a lot of power over my subconscious.
Yeah, I love that. The feeling afterwards and for the hours afterwards is, it's amazing. And I am not. I hate being cold. I absolutely hate it. And I never thought I would be an ice bath person, not in a million years. But the benefits just outweigh that small time of discomfort. So ice baths. Anything else? Any other small habits or small changes that you've made?
Oh, right, let's start the bit again. So, any other small habits or small changes that I've made? I say a big one for me was that September last year, I just stopped drinking. So I think I had kind of played with the idea of not drinking, but then kept going back to it. And it wasn't a big blowout, and then I'm never drinking again. It was just a couple of beers, and I thought, oh, I don't want to do this anymore because I got to a point where I could have 2 or 3 pints would affect my sleep. So my heart rate would be up into the 70s. It's normally down in the 40s when I'm asleep. I'd wake up feeling not hungover, but cloudy and not alert. And I thought, I'm going to stop this now, and just haven't drunk since. And I've not found it difficult to not drink. I've not found it difficult to not want a cold pint or a hot day. I've not found it difficult to walk past the beer section in the off license or supermarket and not pick them up. So I guess maybe before I just wasn't ready to stop drinking. But now I'm just, and I have also found it's quite liberating. Was going out before and saying to friends, "Oh, I'm not drinking at the moment." "Oh, go on, have some." It's easy to convince you. Whereas, do you want a pint? No, I don't drink anymore. It's a lot more final. And I found that's had a real impact on me. And I feel just a lot more kind of alert, a lot more sharp. I'm just on fire at work. I sometimes feel like I've got all these ideas coming to my head that I have to write down before I forget. And I just go up to thinking how I kind of just felt a bit sort of numb when I was drinking. So
It's so funny you just said about not being ready before, because you can tell people about the benefits as much as you tell you blue in the face. Like people have got to be ready, and I think I wasn't ready until I was. And I think when you are, and it all just clicks, and you genuinely just don't want it anymore, it actually becomes quite easy to turn you back on it and to go, no, I'm done. And the things that you thought would have been difficult beforehand, like, saying no to people at the bar, or like, and particularly events or networking or weddings or things like that, that when you're done and you're done, it's not a thing.
yeah, I mean, a big turning point for me was in the summer. So I've been out to a work do, hadn't intended to drink that much at all. But it'd been one of those. What my problem was that if once I'd reached that threshold of like 2.5, 3 beers or a couple of glasses of wine, it's like, right, let's have two. Let's go for it now. Let's get on the Grey Goose. You're 21 again. Let's go for it. And I don't know where that person comes from. And anyway, so it was one of those evenings. Now I got to bed. I got to bed about midnight, which wasn't late compared with what I used to do. But my wife had a rowing race the next day. So I then had to get my eldest daughter to a birthday party for 11. And I promised my youngest daughter I'd take her to play crazy golf. And I'm just lying in bed, just absolutely hanging, just like, oh my God, feeling so fragile. I thinking I can't eat food, I can't get any food down. So I managed to get my eldest to her birthday party, bought myself a half-liter bottle of Coke, and went and played crazy golf. And it kind of felt like I was coming all right after the bottle of Coke, but I thought, this is not on, it's not fair. So that was another big reason for me.
Yeah, I had a few of those, just being hungover with little kids. Man with babies, all right.
Not fair on either party, is it? To you, all the children.
No. I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be that parent that can't do things because I'm got my head in the toilet.
Yeah.
So yeah, wow. So many small things, but also huge things in a way, that changes that you made to your life. What was the impact of those? You've touched on it a little bit with work and having new ideas and feeling fresh, but what was the impact of everything compounding?
I think the impact really has just been a huge change to my life in total, really. So I'm still working with Ollie on the Oliton on basically just continuing to be a better person. So where are we now? February. So towards the back end of last year, probably October time, I decided to set myself this target of doing the half Ironman, um, which is something that I never would have dreamed about doing before. Um, Not drinking, having the ice fast, doing the visualizations, it is ultimately helping me to achieve that goal. So I'm midway through training now and feeling kind of the fittest and strongest that I felt for a long time. And a lot of that's down to it's the kind of the small steps that you're taking. None of these, having a glass of lemon and water in the morning, that's not massive. Having an ice bath every once or twice a week is not massive. Journaling isn't massive, but add them all together and they can be hugely powerful.
That's what happened to me. It was slightly different order, but when I stopped drinking, I then had the capacity to maybe make some of these smaller changes, like the journaling, doing a bit more reading, walking, increasing my training, and introducing things like ice baths, other things of self-care, and doing some work as well. I saw a therapist and did some EMDR therapy, and before I knew it, something had just shifted so fundamentally in my life and who I am and the person that I wanted to be. And I just couldn't believe that giving alcohol was the trigger for, and it wasn't just the alcohol, and I think that's what I kind of want to try and make clear on this podcast moving forward. Like, you'll just give up alcohol and it changes your whole life, but it was the catalyst for all of those other smaller habits that have just compounded. And a year later, I was like a completely different person. My life looked and felt completely different.
You get so much more time back as well. And at the moment, I don't have time to drink and to lose a day or half a day. I've started. You mentioned at the beginning the comeback plan. So I've actually started what I want to do. What I am doing now is putting all the stuff that I've learned from Ollie Ollerton, putting all the stuff that I've learned from self help into a kind of a package to help other men in their 40s and 50s who are kind of feeling just a bit stuck and a bit lost. It's not drinking specific; it's kind of health specific. And helping men to kind of identify their why, what's your purpose in life, helping them to identify a goal, helping them to break the goal down into chunks to achieve, and then talking about all these habits as well, kind of giving them that framework to kind of make the changes to improve themselves as well. And I wouldn't have trained to do all that if I was drinking 2-3 nights a week, because you know what it's like when you're going to work on a hangover, you want to get through work in as easiest way as possible, get home and lie on the sofa. So it's just giving me more time to work on things like that and helping other men like me, really.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I wanted to talk about next, is just the comeback that you've had after such a horrific 2020. If you just said to yourself in 2025, this is what your life is going to look like, would you have believed it?
No, I wouldn't. I've got a presentation that I do on kind of goal setting and mindset, and I've got some pictures that I talk people through about my 2020, and it does feel like I'm talking about someone else's life. But I wouldn't change anything. If I could go back and not have had that tumour, I wouldn't. I wouldn't choose that, because I've got through it, and what I've been through that's kind of made me a better person and kind of triggered all these other changes in my life. So yes, it was an incredibly hard period of time, but I've learned so much from it, and I'm now kind of using what I've learned to hopefully help others as well.
You hear of comebacks often, and comeback stories amazing, but sometimes I think when you're in the thick of it and things aren't great, that feels impossible.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of coming back to actually the piece by piece, those kind of small incremental changes that you made, just one thing at a time. And then once you kind of mastered that, one more thing and one more thing actually led to the comeback.
Yeah, I think that's right. And when anyone that's kind of been through a traumatic time, your goal is literally to make it through the day. Your planning horizons are so short. It's not, oh, what am I going to do in the summer? What am I going to do next year? You're not thinking about doing any kind of sporty or fitness goals. It's just getting through one day till the next.
And what advice would you have for somebody? And it might be exactly what you just said. For any man who's having a little bit of a tough time, doesn't really know where to start, but is kind of coming to that realization that they could do better, or maybe they want to come back.
So a good starting point is to, have a look at all of the habits that you have in your life, good and bad. And kind of, this is something I've kind of cribbed from Audit as well. Is it good for me? Does it help others? Do I enjoy it? And if that habit isn't ticking at least two of those boxes, then give it up. In drinking, I kind of used to enjoy drinking, but it certainly wasn't good for me. It didn't help others either. And people can do that with any kind of list of habits. So that's a good starting point, is to write down all your habits and see whether any of them are destructive, whether they're helping you to achieve your goals or not.
I love that idea of doing a habit audit. And the three things. So is it good for me? Does it help others?
Do I enjoy it?
Do I enjoy it?
Yeah. If you're not ticking at least two of those boxes, it needs to go. Drinking, smoking, endless doom scrolling. That's not ticking many of those boxes.
Love it. I love that. That's, for me, one of kind of the biggest takeouts of this episode. Apart from kind of all of those different things that you do are amazing, but that's that habit audit with those three things is really, really, really useful and a really great starting point.
And another tip I would say if people are kind of in a tough situation is write down. I'm quite a visual person, so with it, different aspects of your life, like on a wheel, so, relationships, work, fitness, and whatever aspects of your life are important for you, and kind of score it on a scale, and then you end up kind of drawing this like a wheel, and you can see that is it money, is it relationships, whatever else. And it's good to kind of revisit that sometime, because I caught up with my therapist. I used to work with a therapist years ago, and her and I've become reasonably good friends now, just online. And she was saying that one of her patients, or clients, if you want to call them, was saying they didn't feel that they'd made much progress. And she said, well, answer me this. How much money would I have to pay you to trade you now with what you were like 12 months ago? And they're, oh no, I'd never go back there, because they'd had this evidence. When you're making small incremental changes every day, it's hard to see the benefit. But if you've got something written down, well, my energy was a 2, my relationship was a 1, my fitness was a 0, and now it's like 9s and 10s, you can actually see that difference that you're making with the habits.
I love that. I do similar exercises as well. So, I love that. And I think sometimes it can feel really overwhelming, the goals and the dreams that you might have, and you think, I just don't know where to start, and I don't know where to kind of improve. But just doing something small, starting, and I think journaling's a great place for that as well, because you start to get to know yourself a little bit better anyway through that. But just start with one thing.
And also working out with why you're looking to achieve something. If someone goes, oh, right, well, I'm going to stop drinking. Why? Why do you want to stop drinking? Who is it benefiting that you'll stop drinking? And if someone is coming to me saying that they want to run a half marathon in 6 months' time, well, why do you want to run a half marathon? What are you going to feel like when you've run it? And sometimes some of the reasons why goals don't fail is because people's heart's not in it. We've talked about not being ready to stop thinking. If your heart isn't truly in a goal, then whether it's life-related, fitness-related, work-related, you probably won't achieve it.
Unless you're super stubborn. That's a bit like me. It's like, I'm going to say I'm going to do something, and it infuriates my husband, because he's got this whole kind of, he really buys into the sunk cost fallacy. Whereas if I say I'm going to do something, I'll see it through. But he's like, even if I'm not enjoying it, and he's just like, just leave it, it's fine. And I'm like, no, I'm just utter stubbornness. I'm going to finish it. So you are coaching men. Are you tell us a little bit about kind of the next chapter for you?
Okay, so yes, I'm running the comeback 6 week comeback challenge. So I've got 4 men that I'm taking through the pilot version of that, and then taking their feedback on board. I really want to develop some kind of an app based community where I can kind of um, put in kind of my templates and things to kind of help men self improvement, build up some kind of a community in there as well. So that's kind of my goal for this year. I've also launched my own podcast where I'm going to be talking to mainly men who've kind of been through, who have been through a really bad period in their life for one reason or another, and then come out the other side. So I've got a fantastic guy. I actually met him on TikTok. He's a runner. He lives in Boston. I'm speaking with him tomorrow, and he actually went through a really dark period of time and tried taking his own life. And he's now out the other side and running marathons. And the aim of that really is just to kind of talk about tips and tactics and strategies that us men have used to kind of get through hard times and they'll kind of triumph again. Because we don't tend to talk to people about things that we're doing. We tend to, particularly men of our age, we're the generation, just crack on and deal with your problems yourself.
I can't wait to hear the podcast, and I just can't wait to see how everything unfolds, because I think it's really needed. I think so many people are going to benefit from it, and thank you, Tim, just so much for sharing your story, what you've been through, what has helped you, and I'm so happy that your life is back on more of an upward spiral than a down one.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been really good to talk to you, Michelle. Great, thank you.
Tim, this honestly has been such an incredibly inspiring conversation. Thank you so much for sharing. Your journey is a testament to the power of resilience and the possibility of creating an epic comeback. To all of our listeners, I hope that Tim's story has inspired you to take action and create your own upward spiral. Remember that small habits, constant effort, and focusing on a purpose can lead to incredible transformations. If you resonated with this episode, please share it with somebody that maybe like to hear it. Please subscribe to The Upward Spiral for more inspiring stories and practical strategies for personal growth. If you want to connect with Tim, I'm going to link to all of his profiles below. So please follow him, check everything out, and please leave us any comments and we'll both answer. Thank you so much for watching or listening, depending on where you are. And I hope you have a lovely week. Bye.